So I'm going to be taking out these Total Chaos upper control arms with home joints. This 4Runner has 116,000 miles on it now, and these have been in since 36,000, which is when I bought the vehicle. I've never replaced the uniballs. I haven't had to. I haven't noticed any excessive noise or anything at all. I don't go in the mud with this, but it's just been, a lot of road driving, some overlanding, regular stuff like that. But we're gonna pull these out, that damn long bolt out through the front, and check this out. We're gonna be putting in the new Dobinsons Billet Aluminum upper control arms. You see the angle that this is basically maxed out to right now, and that's not a problem. Like, I'm not expecting to get any extra travel, but yeah, this is at full droop right now. And since you've seen my other video where I take the lower control arm down to take out the strut assembly, a lot of you guys were like, oh, that's not the quickest way. So we'll see. Because I got to take out the upper control arm anyway, I got to take that off here at the knuckle, lift that up. This is easy to lift up out of the way. Take these 3 nuts out from the strut mount, this lower bolt, and then I'm going to see if I can push this down enough to bring it out and swing it forward. But I bet you I'm going to have to take out the steering link, and because of KDSS, it's actually holding the suspension up. This side is being held up taller than the other side. I may have to also disconnect this sway bar to get it out this way. So I don't want to remove the lower ball joint and this upper ball joint. So I'll try and figure out the best way to do this and share it with you guys. Of course, if you're only going to change upper control arms, you don't have to touch the strut or any of that stuff. You would just knock this out, loosen all that up, take the bolts out, put the new ones in, go get an alignment. So, well, here's the Dobinsons arm, billet aluminum with ball joint. So I'm going to be getting rid of a home joint, getting a ball joint, rubber bushings instead of poly. It should ride better. It's going to be probably hard to tell, but we shall see. I just want to show how the these new Dobinsons Billet UCAs adjust, but also I was curious about what kind of length was in this, essentially like a rod end, but with the OE style bushing. And you can see here there's like plenty of length. That's let's see, that is 70 mil, so like 2.5 inches of length. So this doesn't go in very far. It actually says it here in the instructions to set from the base of the bushing to the base of the arm at 39 millimeters. That's a good starting point for camber. Now these, because these are solid sleeved bushings, you're not going to like offset or twist it like that at all. You're going to put both of them in evenly. So both of them need to be measured to 39 millimeters to start with. And then when you crank this in and out, actually let me try and show you, it pushes, it's making the rod end stick out. So you see this is coming further out now than there. So if you needed to dial in more camber, it's not a very common problem on 4Runners, Tacomas, things like that, but this can be done on the vehicle. And it comes with these these tools. I don't know what size it is, 25, 26, something like that. But it comes with 2 of these tools so that you can adjust the camber, while your alignment shop can adjust the camber right here, and then you lock this nut up against it to set this in place. I also wanted to point out that when I pulled this out, there's like a silicone lubricant of some kind across all those threads. I was going to see if I needed to do a anti-seize. I'm probably just going to put some here in this lower bit, just because I'd say this is going to be steel into a billet arm with steel sleeves. I don't think there'll be any problem with this. I don't have a problem with that in my climate, but if you wanted to put anti-seize, this took a while to actually turn out just by hand because it's pretty long. But yeah. Alright, so I've had this little caliper thing from Harbor Freight, I think it was, forever. You see I've got it set, the 0 is at 39 millimeters. The side where the pin is going to be the easiest, the side where the pin is going to be the easiest way to get the measurement. So what I did is, you got to remember that these are like OE bushes where you've got the bigger side facing the outside and the inner side facing the inside. You see there's a shoulder there and not there. So this has to face the front and the back of the car. So and of course each turn of these could change it by a millimeter or two. So I got this close, and then I just adjusted the camber by this one here, setting that a little bit longer to get 39 millimeters on this. So now I'll bring this up to there, and then I got to put in the secure bolt down here. So to prep these new upper control arms, I recommend, because you got a steel ball joint in a aluminum body, I recommend, either way, these things can rust on the top if they do get moisture in there. Now this thing has a cap and everything with a seal on it, but it's a good idea just to take some extra grease and put it on top of the ball joint just so it doesn't rust. So if you ever have to replace it, it'll be a lot easier to deal with that. Then you're supposed to grease the cap. Now this has a little notch, you see that little notch right there, and that's going to show you where in there, you see that notch in the back. That's going to show you the angle to put this into, and the grease on the O-ring of course helps the O-ring slide in easier and will help keep moisture out of there. And the next thing I did, just as a precaution, is I backed out all these threads and added some anti-seize. So this main one here, that's actually the camber adjustment, is a reverse thread. So you tighten it for it to come out and you loosen it for it to go in, and then this just spins right out. So yeah, just added some anti-seize there. Then I set the length here to 39 millimeters, and now this arm is ready to go back in the vehicle. Just something to note, the little bracket that holds the ABS line on, this bracket right here, the hole was just one size too small, so I just use a tapered drill bit thing to bore that out to the next size, and it'll fit on there just fine. And back to the other side, that's just how that fits right on there. So this side here is done. This is the driver's side. Everything's buttoned up, and just gonna finish the other side and put it. One thing I forgot to add is with this ABS line, you've got some crimped on brackets right here. You can see the edge right there. Just had to loosen that up and loosen up the other one here in the back, and just feed the line through a little bit more just to get it to a better working angle, because it felt a little too tight. You see, this is at ride height now and everything's nice and loose. So remember, I use a step drill bit to drill out the bracket hole to the size that fit this bolt properly, just one step up. And these brackets on the ABS line, I just loosen those up, because on the old Total Chaos arms, this thing was just zip tied to the arm anyway. So just when you do go for alignment, you just want to make sure that what they're gonna do is they're gonna loosen up this this locking bolt here that basically pinches the arm together to hold it tight against the threads. They're gonna take the second nut, the nut nearest the bushings, and back that towards the bushing, and then they can adjust the camber, which they have to do kind of evenly to extend the camber out on both sides, because you don't want any binding from one side, from one bushing to the other. You don't want them to get cockeyed. Remember, we started with them both at 39 millimeters too. Finally, a reason to add camber is when you do a higher caster alignment, you bring the lower control arm bolt, the lower control arm cams in the rear all the way outwards, and you bring the fronts down here all the way inwards. And what that does is moves the wheel as far forward as possible. Then when you dial in your camber with those same adjusters, you normally lose caster. So by having more camber up here, you could potentially maintain higher caster in the front and add the camber from here instead of trying to get it from down below. And then you can end up with a better alignment. Ideally, you want as close to 4 degrees of caster once it's set with the alignment. And there is the finished result. Everything's torqued on the ground. Just took it for a test drive. Feels really good. It's hard to say yet if it feels smoother. It felt like it did, but that could just be my mind because it's been a few days since I've driven this. But yeah, these arms look great. Pretty happy with the instructions and the installation. No questions, no issues at all. Just going to make sure you get those washers in right, and good to go.